Welcome to Golf Training Hacks. This is part 2 in our series on how to help you make your mobility work more effective so you can increase your range of motion and improve your golf swing. The question we're exploring in this series is, why do so many recreational golfers struggle to improve their range of motion? No matter how hard they try, they remain stiff and inflexible. And when that's the case, it makes swinging a golf club more difficult and often injury-producing and painful. And also, the lack of mobility makes lessons and practice less effective, and that makes those performance gains so elusive. So in part 1, we talked about how using breathing patterns can improve the effectiveness of your mobility work. In this video, part 2, we'll talk about how isometrics can help. Now, many studies and the experience of clinicians and coaches over many years have demonstrated that when you perform an isometric contraction before a technique like a stretch, you can make that stretch much more effective. So why do isometrics work? Well, when you read the studies, there are conflicting results. But my reading of the research has isolated several mechanisms that seem to be pretty much confirmed and accepted as why isometrics can be so helpful. Now, one of the most important ones is that you need to apply techniques over time. Like so many things in exercise, if you do something once or twice, it's really not going to help. You need to apply the techniques over a longer period of time. But the 3 mechanisms that are pretty much confirmed and accepted as to why isometrics can be so helpful are post-isometric relaxation, reciprocal inhibition, and an improvement in your tolerance to the stretch. So let's go over in more detail each of these mechanisms. So what's post-isometric relaxation? Well, after an isometric contraction, there's a period of muscle relaxation. An isometric contraction reduces the reflexive contraction response that's signaled by sensory organs in your tendons. It's the same response that you get when the doctor takes his little hammer and taps your patella tendon, and you get that reflexive contraction in your quadriceps. It's the same thing. So by inhibiting that reflexive contraction response, you're going to make the target muscle, the muscle that you want to stretch and mobilize, more accepting of the technique, because it's not going to have that guarding signaling to have a reflexive contraction. Hardwired into your neuromuscular system is something called reciprocal inhibition. So how does that work? Well, when you want to move a joint, the muscles on one side of the joint contract, but the muscles on the other side of the joint need to relax to create the movement. Because if the muscles on both sides of the joint contracted with the same amount of force for the same amount of time, there'd be no movement. So, for example, if you want to move your hand to your face, your biceps need to contract and your triceps need to relax. If the biceps and triceps contracted for the same amount of time with the same amount of force, there'd be no movement. That's an isometric contraction. So how does this help in mobilization or stretching? Well, if you want to stretch your hamstrings, if you isometrically contract your quadriceps, there's going to be a signal sent to the hamstrings to relax, because the neuromuscular system is anticipating some type of joint movement. So one side of the joint has to relax so the other side of the joint can contract and create the movement. So if you do that, then the hamstrings will be more accepting of a technique like a stretch or mobilization, because they're going to be relaxed. So that's how reciprocal inhibition can help you improve the effectiveness of your mobilization work. So how can an isometric contraction improve your stretch tolerance? Well, it's thought that an isometric contraction reduces the signals from sensory organs that detect pain. So if you can reduce the pain signaling while you're stretching, you can reduce that guarding mechanism, that mechanism that would tend to send signals to muscles to contract to protect soft tissue and joints from injury. So you can see that breathing patterns and isometrics, whether in combination or individually, can help you improve the effectiveness of your mobilization techniques. In part 3 of this series, we'll talk about muscle energy techniques. Muscle energy techniques use a combination of breathing patterns and isometrics to help you boost the effectiveness of your mobilization techniques. At Golf Training Hacks, we not only want you to play better golf, but we want you to move better and feel better every day, so you can play the best golf of your life for the rest of your life.